In his 1994 single, Return to Pooh Corner, the title track from his Grammy-nominated CD of the same name, Kenny Loggins muses that it's hard to explain how a few precious things seem to follow throughout all our lives. Now, part of Loggins' meaning is that often the things we learn in childhood linger in our memories far longer than you would think. The rest of the verse tenderly describes watching his very young third son sleeping peacefully with Loggins' old teddy bear beside him. The singer-songwriter does the dad things. He tucks the boy in, kisses him, and turns to leave the room when he could swear that the bear whispers, "Boy, welcome home," to him. And Loggins realizes that the innocence of childhood, the loss of which he's been mourning and feeling nostalgic for during the entire rest of the song, which is essentially a reworking of a song he wrote back when he was in high school rather than doing his schoolwork. Anyway, his childhood innocence has returned to him through his connection with his little boy. Still gets me every time. Well, I don't know how precious you can call this next bit, but it's the one thing I could think of which relates the most directly to the text for this morning. I remember it from a time several decades ago. There's a song we used to sing in Sunday school, and it went like this. Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. For the Father up above is looking down in love. Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. Later verses hold similar notes of caution, always using the same reason, that God is watching. Oh, be careful, little ears, what you hear. Oh, be careful, little feet, where you go. Oh, be careful, little tongue, what you say. Oh, be careful, little hands, what you do. Maybe the rest of you don't remember this song, or don't remember your children learning it. Kernersville Meeting, which is where I grew up, has tended to be somewhat more conservative and evangelical than our meeting here in Winston-Salem for most of the past half century, after all. But thank goodness they usually aren't mean-spirited about it. Songwriter Julie Gold made a similar point a little more profoundly in her 1985 song, From a Distance. It was a hit for Bette Midler just before the first Gulf War in 1991. God is watching us from a distance. The implication being that God is watching to see how we do. Likewise, Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel made pretty much the same point when they teamed up again in 1975, 5 years after they split, to record My Little Town. My little town, I grew up believing God keeps his eye on us all. Now I realize that some people think of such talk as rather unsettling. It's kind of like that 1983 song by the Police, Every Breath You Take. Gordon Matthew Sumner, the English teacher turned singer, better known as Sting, still professes himself surprised by how many people interpret it as a love song and have it at their weddings, for goodness sake. But if you really listen, the words are awfully intense, even a bit disturbing, because they're talking about a stalker. Every breath you take, every move you make, every bond you break, every step you take, I'll be watching you every single day. And every word you say, every game you play, every night you stay, I'll be watching you. A fair number of people report having thought that lyrics like, he sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake, He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake. Made Santa Claus a frightening figure when they were children. So talking about God the same way doesn't do anything much to help them feel any closer to God. But I look at all of this in the light of an experience I had my senior year at Guilford College. One of my classes was on the book of Isaiah, as many of you know. Now there's a verse in Isaiah 42:6, which reads, I am the Lord, I have called you in righteousness. I have taken you by the hand and kept you. I have given you as a covenant to the people, a light to the nations. When we started discussing the larger context in which this verse appears, I really hadn't given it much thought. But another guy in the class, who happened to be Jewish, and dyslexic, by the way, said that the mental image he got was a very tender one. A parent leading a small child by the hand. And I can see God keeping an eye on us all in much the same way that a parent gives a child that initial push on the kid's first bicycle and watches as the kid pedals away for the first time without either training wheels or the parent's guiding and steadying hand. Anyway, my reason for bringing up the children's hymn, Oh Be Careful Little Eyes, has to do with the text for this morning, which is basically a single verse. But before you decide that I'm taking it out of context, consider where it comes from. A book where there often isn't much in the way of extended context. Proverbs. Proverbs 27:17 says something like this. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. At least that's what we think it says. The notes to the Jewish Study Bible call Proverbs 27:17 a difficult verse, while the translation itself says, as iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the wit of his friend. But there's a textual note that says that the word rendered wit is literally the word for face. Both the New Revised Standard Version of 1989 and the New Revised Standard Version Updated Edition of 2021 follow the Jewish Study Bible pretty closely, both in terms of the translation and the interpretive note. So does the New English Translation, also called the Net Bible, partly because it was developed online, which includes a translator's note that says, the use of the word face, chiefly KJV, ASV, countenance, would here emphasize that it is the personality or the character that is being sharpened. Constructive criticism sharpens character. Boy, that's evangelical as all get out. Use of the wits in interaction that makes two people sharp as a razor. Another example from the Talmud is that of two students sharpening each other in the study of the Torah. On the other hand, Robert Alter, Emeritus Class of 1937 Professor of Hebrew and Comparative Literature at Berkeley, whose one-man translation of the entire Hebrew Bible started, I think, in 1990, in the late 1990s, and was finished in 2019, renders the verse as iron together with iron and a man together with his friend. Now, Alter states in a footnote that the saying is usually understood as referring to magnetized iron. But he doesn't give any references in support of his assertion that magnetism, rather than physical sharpening, is the process being referred to here. It's an interesting suggestion, which would certainly make the metaphor work more easily, but I haven't found it anywhere else so far. At any rate, one question that we really need to ask is whether iron really sharpens iron. And the answer is Well, not exactly. Despite what many, possibly most of us, have seen the chef do at the Japanese steakhouse, you can't just rub one knife against each other and expect them to get sharper. For one thing, they're too much alike. The two knives, if made of pure iron and not galvanized with zinc or made of steel or some other alloy, are going to be of pretty much the same degree of strength or hardness. But the saying had to start somewhere. And what we really have is a practical bit of conventional wisdom from blacksmithing in the early Iron Age, which is when this verse was written. Turns out that in order for iron to sharpen iron, one piece has to be strengthened with carbon. In other words, made into steel. Think of a steel file or rasp which you can use to sharpen iron knives or saw blades. Not only is it harder than the iron knife or saw blade being scraped against it, it's also more abrasive. Now, a lot of sermons have been preached on Proverbs 27:17, many of them with the goal of making you think about other people's influences on you. That's a commonplace. But this morning, I want us to think about the influence we have on other people. I'm reminded of a Downton Abbey episode. I believe it's the first one in season 4. Lady Mary has been widowed 6 months earlier. Her relationship with her father's third cousin Matthew, the next heir to the earldom, was the great on-again, off-again romance of the first 2 seasons. But all that ended tragically on the very day that Mary gave birth to their baby boy, the next heir to the estate and title after Matthew. The proud papa was driving home when he was killed in a car crash after seeing his newborn son only one time. And Mary takes it hard. When somebody close to us dies, well, it's like, there are several times in life when we all go a little crazy. One is puberty, and another is when somebody close to us dies. Mary confides to her grandmother, variously referred to as the Dowager Countess, or even Old Lady Grantham, that one of the things she misses is the person that she was when she was with Matthew. She says, "The truth is, I don't think I'm going to be a very good mother." Her grandmother's response is, "Why not?" And Lady Mary says, "Because somehow with Matthew's death, all the softness that he found in me seems to have dried up and drained away. Maybe it was only ever there in his imagination." Most of us, probably all of us, have known a relationship like that. We've had a parent, a teacher or mentor, a child, a sibling, a spouse, a companion, a best friend, a hero, who's brought out the best in us and made us see parts of ourselves that we couldn't see on our own. Robert Barclay, the 17th century Quaker apologist, and probably the closest thing to a systematic theologian that the Society of Friends has ever bothered to produce, wrote that sitting silently in meeting for worship had that effect on him. Quote, "When I came into the silent assemblies of God people, I felt a secret power among them, which touched my heart. And as I gave way unto it, I found the evil weakening in me and the good raised up. And indeed, this is the surest way to become a Christian." There's an old saying that goes, "Our lives are the only Bible that some people will ever read." There's a perfect illustration of this from back when I was at Guilford College years ago. I took Pete Moore's Quakerism class. Those of you who went to Guilford, do you remember Pete Moore? Yeah. during I think it was my sophomore year. Well, one day Pete's daughter came to class to talk to us about I forget what. But she was accompanied by her daughter, who was still quite small at the time. I mean, we're talking toddler. I don't remember why the girl was with her mommy that day. Anyway, at the end of the class, everybody was filing out, but I stayed behind and helped pick up the little girl's toys. I didn't think anything about it at the time. I just knew it was a chore which would delay the mother and that she'd probably appreciate a bit of assistance. But you know me, I've always had a soft spot for little kids. Joyce used to tell a story about how she and I once went to a meeting of the local chapter of the Society for Creative Anachronism, the SCA, and I sat down on the floor. Imagine me doing that these days and getting up again. And it wasn't long before I got swarmed. I disappeared beneath a giggling group of small children who were obviously delighted. Come to think of it, I wasn't having such a bad time myself. Anyway, getting back to the Guilford College story. Sometime after that Quakerism class, within the next day or so, I was having dinner in the dining room in Founders Hall. One of the other guys from the class was at the table with me, and he said that it had really impressed him that I stayed behind to help gather up the grandchild's toys. You never know what other people are going to see you doing. And remember. So is the proverb about iron sharpening iron supposed to be a good thing? Well, maybe not. One of the essays I consulted while preparing this message argues that if you do look a bit closer at the immediate context of Proverbs 27, you find a decidedly mixed bag of examples immediately before this morning's text. For example, there's a warning that if you bless your neighbors in a loud voice too early in the morning, you'll be accounted as cursing them. I suppose the modern version of that is about never giving your friends' children Christmas presents or birthday presents that make a lot of noise if you expect to keep them as your friend. Another one likens, you're going to love this one, another one likens a nagging wife to the continual dripping of a leaky roof on a rainy day. Hardly auspicious examples, are they? Perhaps the best thing to do in the end is to strive to become the best version of yourself as a matter of pride and self-respect, and to let the question of influencing other people take care of itself. As I said a couple of minutes ago, you never know what other people are going to see you doing, do you? And if you do that, you'll likely find yourself back in touch with the best parts of the child you used to be. And that, to borrow Kenny Loggins' phrase, is a precious thing indeed. Amen.